Harvard. If each of you can solve this problem, I'll give you $10,000.
Upon hearing the amount of $10,000, there was a chorus of "wow" from the staff. It was at the peak of excitement during the company's dinner party when the CEO announced that Mr. High School Dropout refers to me. On the other hand, Mr. Harvard is the ace of the sales department and my colleague named Jack. Some other colleagues were saying,
"Who believes the dropout could do it?"
Wow, our CEO is so crazy.
There's no way a high school dropout like you could solve such a quiz, right?
In front of overly confident Jack, I continued to move my pen. In order to prove these elitists wrong, as well as respond to the cheers of the woman I like. When I finally put down my pen, silence spread.
No way. How did you?
Then, the CEO reached out to shake my hand, and a huge round of applause erupted from everyone. My name is Daniel Anderson, 28 years old. I work for a certain company in Chicago. The headquarters is in New York, and I belong to the product planning department of a food manufacturer that is expanding its share with frozen foods. That said, rather than new plans, I'm mostly involved in assistant office work as a regular employee. My daily life is pretty uneventful. I wake up at the same time every day, leave the house, and drive the same way. Although it may be less compared to New York, the Chicago commute rush is quite something. For lunch, I buy a daily special sandwich from a shop near the office at noon, and eat it alone on a bench in a nearby park.
Here you go. Brother, you are a regular at our shop, right? I look forward to your impressions.
Oh, yeah. Having lived overseas until a few years ago, I find the unique vibe of the US refreshing. Though I don't have the courage to retort to the clerk's small chat yet, I secretly hope to someday be able to respond cheerfully. However, at the company, I still try to keep as low a profile as possible and breathe quietly, making an effort not to cause friction with other staff. Of course, I have no desire for promotion. I just hope to continue working just enough not to get fired. That's my wish, but it hasn't always been this way for me. When I was younger, I was interested in climbing the corporate ladder and wanted to be recognized by others. However, now I deliberately choose this way of life. I thought that was the only path available to me. My colleague Jack is the complete opposite of me. He's expected to do great things as the ace of the sales department and is always the center of attention to lead conversations. People naturally gather around him, and the conversation blooms. Seeing Jack reminds me how people with strong communication skills are in a completely different league from those without. On the other hand, it's clear from being around him that he blatantly chooses whom he associates with. It was based on their education. That was blatant.
Where'd you graduate from? Oh, that place, one of those lower-tier universities. Furthermore, you probably didn't achieve in your field before the graduation, right? That's why you're not thorough.
When a colleague makes a mistake or does something Jack dislikes, he always judges them based on their education, thoroughly belittling anyone he considers below him in terms of education. That was a common occurrence. Moreover, the manager would just leave it to him, and turn a blind eye. Eventually.
You're a high school grad, huh? Seriously, we've got some useless people joining us. You'd better quit soon.
Even new colleagues, who were expected to be competent, were looked down upon by him as soon as it was revealed they were high school graduates, pushing them to resignation. Thus, in the past 2 or 3 years, most of the colleagues I could casually talk to have left. I believe Jack's influence has been significant. Of course, education is a convenient indicator for classifying people, proving one has the perseverance and continuity to overcome the challenging assignments to gain the degree. Therefore, Jack's philosophy was that he wanted to associate with people who had the ambition and perseverance to win the diploma. That's why his idea was that there was nothing wrong with judging people by their education. Initially, he treated me and the other colleagues with a standard "nice to meet you" but the moment he found out I was a high school dropout who got into the company through odd jobs, his attitude towards me changed drastically. Moreover, I couldn't catch on to Jack's American vibe and ended up responding too easily, which might have also held a grudge against me. Since then, Jack would mock me every chance he got, saying things like,
Looking at that guy just irritates me.
or,
Even if you tell a dropout, he wouldn't understand.
making me a persona non grata among the colleagues around him. One day, a few colleagues from a partner company came to the Chicago branch for training. Since I wasn't handling any significant tasks, I was assigned to be the trainer for a young employee named Natalie. She was lively, motivated, and seemed to be highly regarded at work. Moreover, when she walked into the training room on her first day, she was so beautiful like a model, and she immediately became the talk of the town for being cute. Noticing that, Jack started to fuss over her, often getting between us.
Natalie, you graduated from a pretty decent private university.
Oh, well, its ranking might be on the higher side. But here, I'm definitely a newbie.
No worries. I have high expectations for you. Is it really okay for this guy to be in charge of your training? What are you doing now? Should I take over?
While saying such things, Jack started neglecting his work and hanging around the training room. Being from the partner company, Natalie couldn't treat him as her superior rudely. On a day, when Jack was away, she whispered to me,
Honestly, I find your way of teaching much clearer.
"Really?"
Yes, it's like Jack tends to muddle what I've managed to organize in my mind. Oh. Sorry, I shouldn't say things like this.
Hearing her words irritated me at Jack's behavior. He was interfering with her training. On the other hand, I was happy she shared her true feelings with me, and accidentally touching knees as we moved our chairs closer made my heart skip a beat. As the year-end approached, the date for our company's annual dinner party was set. Being the organizer not only leaves a good impression on the higher-ups but also comes with free attendance, making many people actually want to do it. Of course, I had no intention of volunteering. Instead, eager as ever, Jack volunteered and got the role.
As usual, there's one guy with no enthusiasm, pretending to be busy but can't even raise his index finger. Really can read the room, can he?
He seemed to relieve his stress by belittling me in front of others. Moreover, this year, the CEO from the New York headquarters was coming to join the Chicago branch's party. Upon hearing that, Jack immediately looked at me and smirked, saying,
You're definitely attending, okay?
He was bragging about preparing a special game to catch the CEO's attention. Seeing that, Natalie murmured next to me,
It would be nice if those who want to do it could take care of it, right?
I agree. I unconsciously muttered. We glanced at each other and blushed, saying, Oh, sorry. Having someone who felt the same way nearby made my gloomy feelings lighten a bit. The cold days continued, and the city's Christmas mode settled down, quickly bringing us to the day of the dinner party. December flies by. Before you know it, it's New Year's. The venue for the party was a private banquet hall in a fancy restaurant, planned to be held in grand fashion. It was reflecting the company's rising performance.
Our boss asked to start without him, so I'd like to begin the party.
With Jack's cheerful signal, we toasted, and a variety of beautiful dishes were served. We enjoyed the food, reminiscing about the year's events. About an hour had passed since the opening.
Sorry, I'm late. Is everyone having fun?
All eyes turned to the speaker. The CEO, dressed in a sharp and elegant suit, made a dashing entrance and began his speech, slightly tightening the room's atmosphere. He is known for his strong numerical skills and logical thinking, making rumors that you need to be well prepared for meetings to avoid being overwhelmed. The drinking and eating momentarily seemed to falter as everyone's movements became somewhat hesitant. Yet, as soon as the CEO finished his speech, Jack stood up energetically, as if to dispel the tense atmosphere.
Since the boss is here, let's do a special game. Bingo is too mundane, so here we have a quiz contest.
Jack's quiz contest involved randomly selected colleagues coming up in pairs to compete by answering questions on given topics as fast as they could. It started with two younger staff members being shown a picture of a company executive and asked to name them.
You don't even know the full name of our vice president. That's worthy of a pay cut.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
The quiz surprisingly caught the president's interest, and the venue was buzzing with excitement. After a while, Jack grabbed everyone's attention with a
So now we're gonna have.
and a sly grin. I had a bad feeling about it.
Next, how about a showdown between a high school dropout and a Harvard grad? Of course, when we talk about our high school dropout colleague, that would be Daniel. Come on up.
He called me out, beckoning me forward with a flick of his index finger. I thought surely the CEO or executives wouldn't stand for that. But the CEO had already been tipsy from wine, started cheering.
Go for it.
It seemed there was no escape for me. Reluctantly, I put down my glass and stood up to go forward.
And of course, representing the Harvard grads of Chicago branch, that would be me.
Jack rolled up his sleeves and stood beside me, making a show of it.
All right, I'll present a question. Daniel, it's a college-level question. Is that okay?
The crowd murmured.
That's kind of harsh.
Wait, he said he's a dropout, right?
Suddenly, the CEO stood up.
Hold on. Wouldn't that be too advantageous for Jack? Plus, the opponent is a dropout, right? Here, I'll give the question. That's okay with you, Jack?
Yeah, well, certainly. Please go ahead.
Jack was taken aback by that unexpected turn but had no choice but to accept, as it was a request from the boss. As for me, I just wanted to return to my seat as soon as possible. If I could, I'd even flee the place and head home. The CEO stood up in front of everyone, took off his jacket, looked around at the staff, and then began to speak.
Do you all know? There are still many unsolved mathematical problems in the world. Among them, some have a prize of $1 million attached. That means, if you can solve one of those problems, you could win $1 million, attracting challengers from around the world.
We were puzzled. No one could guess what the president was about to say.
So, Mr. High School Dropout, Mr. Harvard, it doesn't matter which. If you can solve this problem, well actually, since researchers around the world can't solve it, let's do this. If you can work on this proof problem and get to a point where I'm impressed or satisfied, I'll give you $10,000.
At the mention of $10,000, there was a chorus of "wow" from the employees. Well, this is that specific the US thing. The joke where $10 turns into $10,000, right? While I was thinking so, some colleagues were mocking.
Who believes the dropout could do it?
Wow, our CEO is so crazy.
Amidst that, I was feeling let down. I never thought the CEO would be so focused on education. Certainly, he must have graduated from a prestigious university's graduate school. I heard he wanted to pursue an academic career but reluctantly took over his father's company. I was so fed up that the words, "Sorry, I decline," were almost out of my mouth. I didn't care if this made the atmosphere awkward. I thought. But then, at that moment, I accidentally made eye contact with Natalie sitting at the back of the room. Without a doubt, she was telling me to
Do your best.
She made a small fist and looked at me earnestly. Could it be that I'm being cheered on? Seeing that, I felt a bit happy. The thought that someone was seriously rooting for me, even as I was being made a spectacle of at the company's dinner party, which warmed my heart a little. Even if I was going to leave the company eventually, the thought of not taking on this challenge and disappointing her felt unbearably embarrassing. I suppressed my desire to back out and decided to do the best I could.
All right, are you guys ready? Here comes the question. Listen carefully. This is a proof problem known as the Collett's conjecture. For any positive integer, if it's even, you divide it by 2, if it's odd, you triple it and add 1. Eventually, you will always get down to 1. Prove this.
A large white sheet of paper and a marker were placed in front of me. I took off the cap of the pen, and my concentration surged as I began to write down equations. My head was overflowing with numbers that I couldn't fully write down. The venue was enveloped in silence. The only sound was the squeak of my pen moving. Meanwhile, Jack was just staring at me dumbfounded and saying,
Hey, what? I don't get it.
The large white sheet in front of me was filled with small numbers and symbols, which the CEO looked down at with curiosity. Then I put down the pen. I give up.
Are you sure?
My sudden surrender, after appearing to be making good progress, started to stir up the staff.
See, giving up so easily just proves you have a dropout's brain.
Jack's remark elicited laughter from the other colleagues with comments like,
Good one.
Hilarious.
However, my expression didn't change. Neither did the CEO's. Excuse me, with my current ability, I cannot fully prove it.
Well done. You used partial differential equations. Good job. It's a different approach from mine, but I'm impressed by what I saw.
He seemed satisfied, took my hand, and asked for a handshake.
What? What does this mean?
Confused by the situation, Jack and the others watched as we firmly shook hands. Then, Natalie stood up and started to applaud. Her applause was joined by a few colleagues, and eventually, it turned into a big round of applause. By the way, the paper in front of Jack had nothing meaningful written on it. Pale-faced Jack opened his mouth.
Hey, what did you rig? Did you ask our busy boss for help?
No, I didn't do anything. I just heard this problem now.
That's impossible, right? A high school dropout like you solving this kind of problem, partial differential equations. Enough with the act.
I told you, I didn't do anything. Unable to rebut effectively, Jack's entourage approached, scrutinizing my pen and paper for any tricks.
Sir, let's do another question. What he wrote on the paper is nonsense. He just scribbled down something meaningless, right?
Everyone, please take a seat. I have something to say.
After taking a sip of water, the CEO started an unexpected talk at the party.
I have an announcement to make to everyone here.
The colleagues, who had been siding with Jack until a moment ago, suddenly fell silent and listened intently.
It may seem sudden, but I've been concerned about the high turnover rate at the Chicago branch. Especially, the high number of resignations among colleagues with, let's say, lower educational backgrounds had me puzzled. So, by attending this party, I've come to understand the reason behind the high turnover rate.
Jack and the other staff exchanged uncomfortable glances.
Pardon me, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
Education can indeed be one criterion for judging people. However, it's not everything. Listen, Jack, it's time to abandon that mindset. Don't cling to past glories. Do work that you can be proud of, based on your current abilities, both for yourself and for others.
Hearing his stern words, Jack stiffened and expressed his apology. For the first time, I saw his fingers trembling.
Well, a game is a game. As promised, Daniel, who worked hard, will receive the prize of $10,000.
The venue buzzed again. Excuse me, sir. You're joking, right? You mean $10, don't you?
Oh, come on, that's a shame. I don't lie. When I say $10,000, it's literally $10,000. Though, whether it'll be exactly $10,000 is not certain at this point.
I'm sorry, but still I don't get it.
Actually,
according to his explanation, our company has plans to sell a collaboration product with a famous influencer. Then, they decided to appoint me as the leader of that project. Me? Am I leading such a major project?
The initial reward for the project is $10,000, but our estimates suggest that if successful, the project leader's lifetime earnings could increase by $1 million. How about that? Not a bad deal, right?
I nodded dumbfounded. Natalie, who was by my side before I knew it, exclaimed.
That's amazing!
Jack no longer had the energy to follow her with his gaze. The other staff gathered around me to show excited expressions. The party continued with dinner as usual, but Jack, as the organizer, had quieted down as if his fire had gone out, and his entourage took over running the event. He sat hunched over, sipping wine directly from the bottle, looking rather pitiful. No one approached him to speak. Meanwhile, including some of Jack's entourage, a group of colleagues gathered around me with cheerfully drinking.
Man, you're not what you seem. I had no idea.
Be my friend, future project leader.
Being addressed like this made me smile wryly in disbelief, but it also made me a bit happy. Still, it didn't quite feel real. The most unbelievable part was Natalie occasionally touching my leg. My heart rate increased, and with the alcohol, I think my face must have been blash. Thus, the dinner party ended with an unusual high note. On the way home, I was still feeling a bit excited. Was this excitement about the project or about Natalie? As I was pondering that, Natalie said,
"Have a good weekend,"
and quickly caught a taxi, leaving abruptly. I guess I was foolish to expect anything. She's young and lives with her parents. Plus, being such a cute and nice girl, she probably has a boyfriend. Thinking so, I said goodbye to the other colleagues and headed in the direction of my home. That's when a man approached me. I wondered if someone is going the same way, and as I turned around, it was Jack. Since he still seemed to be dwelling on the events, he was clearly not in high spirits. Despite feeling awkward, I started walking with him.
Why could you solve such a problem?
Reeking of alcohol, he asked me. His eyes were opening and closing, clearly drunk.
Actually, my final education level in the States is high school dropout, but in the UK, I graduated from Oxford University.
What? Oxford University? Are you serious?
The moment he heard that, his eyes widened, and he shook my shoulders. In fact, I went to the UK because of my father's job when I was in high school. I enrolled and graduated from Oxford University. When asked about my education, I could answer, Oxford graduate, but I prefer not to be judged by my education, so I've deliberately answered, dropout. This all started when I fell in love with a woman who judged people based on their education and work history. But she was only interested in me because I was an Oxford graduate. Since she was someone I truly loved, the breakup was a massive shock to me, to the point where women became a trauma for a while. That's when I decided on this way of living. Not emphasizing education, not standing out, just living as my plain self, and wanting those around me to acknowledge the real me.
That's like fraud, isn't it? The same as lying.
I haven't falsified my education. It's true that my last educational attainment here in the US is a high school dropout. But that doesn't mean I deserve to be looked down upon by your actions up to now.
For the first time, I firmly expressed my will, and he suddenly slumped his shoulders.
Maybe you're right. I've been judging people by their education without trying to see their true essence. Plus, everyone who has praised me until now, they might have just judged me by my education, just like my parents did.
Your parents did that?
Yep. It was all about going to a good university. That's how I was raised, like that was everything.
Education is part of a person, but not everything. That's why I think it's necessary to make calm judgments based on daily attitudes and ways of living, especially for those in leadership positions.
I've said quite rude things to you, but not everyone is like that. Our boss, as well as Natalie, they didn't judge people by their education.
How come Natalie came out?
I said with my heart pounding. Then, he laughed self-deprecatingly.
I was rejected by her a little while ago. I thought I was confessing my serious love. Turns out she likes someone else. I have an idea of who it might be.
Saying that with a lonely look, he apologized to say he had truly reflected this time, and left. Afterward, the CEO pointed out the dangers of judging people by their education to the colleagues, and Jack seemed to have sincerely reflected. If so, the resignation rate at the Chicago branch would decrease. Even in today's society, there are still many cases where people are judged by their education. It's not entirely bad. But that doesn't mean you should view a person's abilities or character through a biased lens. I have a project leader's job waiting for me to start soon. It's been a while since I've had such an exciting job. I'm truly grateful to the CEO for this opportunity. And now, in front of a woman named Natalie, my heart is racing incredibly, because she's holding my arm and looking into my eyes with her cheeks flushed. It seems my future is incredibly bright.